Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and this is Harpin on Rugby. If you check out our podcast feed, you'll hear my guests Pádraig Kelly, Caolan Scully, and Peter Lockhart, all giving their excellent thoughts and insights on the Rugby World Cup so far. But for this week's bonus clip, I've asked them to take off the Irish jerseys, metaphorically that is, just for a few minutes and give us a look at how their own provincial squads are shaping up with the URC kickoff just a matter of weeks away, including a possible starting 15 with the available players. So starting with yourself, Pádraig, how are things looking out west?
Things have been looking really well. We've had 3 pre-season friendlies: Ulster, Munster, and Edinburgh, with two wins out of 3. It's been interesting to see that we've used them very much as squad games. So when you look at the benches named, it's literally everyone who's available who didn't play like the previous Eagles match. Whereas if you look at the Munster match, which we lost, Munster treated that like a game. 8 people on the bench. This is how we're prepping for everything. What's really impressed me looking at the games that I've been able to see, that we really have a good group of SOBs, speedy outside backs. So
not Sean O'Brien's this time, no?
No, we have them as well. But what I've been really impressed with the guys who've come in, like Joe Joyce is making a good physical impact. Andrew Smith is rapid, lads. Like just rapid. There was a point in the Munster match where there was a kick through and it went to a 50-22, and the first person reacting to the ball was Andrew Smith. I'm like, how he's out overtaking Munster people who are near the ball at full pelt. Like he's a very, 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 very fast player. I'm glad to see everyone's got game time. I think it's a really hard time to like see where the provinces are at because the World Cup is overshadowing everything, and the usual preseason friendlies we'd have like against the French teams or English teams, they're not really there. I think they bring a different level of physicality. I was happy for us to beat Edinburgh, especially turning around in the second half like we did, because I think to go league into Ospreys, you want to be beating especially the non-Irish teams. You want to improve. Like that's the base, that's the level we're at. I've heard good things. Wilkins is saying all the right things. Losing Johnny O'Connor is a bit of a shock. I wasn't expecting it from the S&C. He's moved on to Galway. That's a bit of a it's weird seeing guys who are so based in the camp and such names for the in Connacht Rugby gone. But look, I think as a squad, new voices were needed. I think Pete Wilkins has brought in a really strong team against them. I'm hoping to see some really good physical performances, and I'm looking forward to that Ospreys match. Even though I'll be in Boston for that weekend, I've really timed my holiday to America badly. But you wanted a starting 15. I can give you 23 that I think might start against Ospreys. I don't think there's a lot of surprise out of it, apart from the backs, because it's really I found it hard to pick there. But I've gone for I think the standard Buckley, Heffen, Ainger now with Beelum over in France, then Niall Murray and Joe Joyce in the second row with Jared Butler, Prendergast, and Oliver. I think are all fit and ready to go, but if not, put Boyle in for JB and another back row on the bench. Then our backs will be Blade and Carty. They're the starting 9 and 10. Daly and Farrell have been named 12 to 13, most consistency in the warm-up, so that looks like it's going to be our starting centre partnership going for the beginning of the season. Do not be surprised if Carl Ford takes over that 12 jersey while Bundy is still to come back, and because he's been playing some really nice stuff. He's turning into a really silky rugby player. And a back 3 of Kilgallen, Porch, and possibly Smith. But could be Tiernan O'Halloran and Porch on the wing. Who knows? But I think looking at Smith and how he's playing, that type of speed, you kind of want that on from day one and see what he can give you. With a bench of Dylan Tierney-Marty, Peter Dooley, Dominic Robertson-McCoy, Ushing Dowling, Paul Boyle, Riley, JJ Hanrahan, and Ralston, who I think gives that nice flexibility in a 23 jersey. I am expecting good things from this Connacht team. I think Wilkins has the ability to hit the ground running. I know he's changed the backroom team a lot, like Scott Fardy, John Muldoon coming in. Like they're 2 big names. Scott Fardy doesn't have a lot of coaching under his belt, but if he can bring that hard gritness into that pack, and John Muldoon can, I think this will be a better fit for him as a team than Bristol was under Lamb, because Lamb has a very specific way he wants to play rugby, and I think Wilkins, from listen to him, is a bit more what you got. That's a bit better than I had. Yeah, go on. Like it's more of a collaboration. And I think being able to hit the ground running is going to be very important because it is a slog up until the Munster match in January. It's full go week in, week out before they get a break, and they'll need to hit the ground running because it's a type of season that can run away from you very quickly.
Absolutely, and be looking forward to the European rugby as well. I remember you were on this time last year doing the exact same thing for us, and you were saying how they were up against it. They had the new pitch, so they had to play away for their first few matches, and it was a tough start to the season, but they really came back strongly. So a lot to look forward to this season for sure. Okay, next up we have the reigning URC champions. I'm just saying that before he takes the opportunity to remind me. Here's Caolan Scully looking at Munster.
Thank you, Jeff. It's 126 days in case anyone needed further reminding.
But who's counting?
Me and a lot of others. Yeah, look, I think I'd be upfront and honest about it. When I came on with you last year, I said the Munster would not be winning silverware in 2022, 2023. They have, and the only way is up now. I think that's the amazing part of it. I was lucky enough to catch all 3 preseason games. It was a mixed bag. I genuinely thought after the Leinster game, it's going to be another preseason of this where we just don't get going, but come the first round of the URC, it looks fine because that's what we do almost every year, you know. But against Connacht, they were really, really impressive. Maybe people who listen here will be delighted here. Maybe they won't, but Joey Carberry has looked really good in the last 2 games. The access of himself and Antoine Frisch in midfield, they just click. They're just very similar type of players. It's heads up. I know you could be old school and be like, well, they do a lot of, going sideways and laterally, but it works. It works. And for anyone who was lucky enough to catch the Barbarians game yesterday, Brian Gleeson made his first appearance. Brian Gleeson, famously one of the standouts, if not the standout player from the Under-20 World Cup, scored 2 tries, bounced 2 or 3 lads actually across the whole game. Yeah, he made mistakes, but it's exciting future there. Munster, they start with the Sharks, which is not easy. We're hearing, it's, week 5 or week 4 that the internationals will be back, probably week 5 of the URC. So probably a 3-week break after the international, after the World Cup, and then that's to go out in the quarterfinals and so on and so forth. And if that's the case, it's just, injuries is the big thing. Mike Haley's out, Patrick Campbell is out, Sean O'Brien is out injured, Alex Nankerville is still down in New Zealand. So quite a few backs, and Paddy Effin Patterson is also sidelined. So there's injuries there. There's no doubt about that, but it's a strong squad. And I think it's a squad that'll be challenging on both fronts this year. If I'm really honest, I think there's the way Mike Prendergast wants to go, and he is saying this has been his best preseason. That's not just it's been his best preseason. Everyone is singing off the same hymn sheet. And if I'm to be bold, I think with Mike Haley's injury, I think we could see Jack Crowley and Joey Carberry on the field at the same time, because that's what he used to do at Racing. I think that's what we're going to see at Munster. I understand that the exercise of the match day 23 is probably more short term. When you're URC champions and all that, you kind of have a couple of players at the World Cup and shining bright. But I think Josh Wycherley gets the nod at loose head alongside probably Diarmuid Barron. Now Barron is one of the next men up for Ireland, in case anything happens a hooker. So it's hard to know, but probably Barron. Munster signed a young prop, a prop from New Zealand, if anyone's ever heard of him, Mr. John Ryan. He's Irish qualified and everything. He's been really impressive actually in the last 2 games. So he's expected to come back in there. And second row is a bit of a lottery. They've tried Gavin Coons as a second row. I think we'll see it going forward as an option because his scrummaging is just remarkable from there. He brings so much power. But I think it's going to be Wycherley and probably leaning towards Thomas Ahern at the moment to start. Maybe Coombs, but I just think they'll lean towards Ahern or Dogbo and rotate from there as things stand. The back row, I mean, it's the crown jewel of Irish rugby. I always say it. It's sharp. I think we're going to go with probably Alex Kendall and Jack O'Donoghue and Gavin Coombs. John Hodnett, he left the field of the sports ground in a moon boot 2 weeks ago. We haven't heard an update. So it'll be interesting to see. But Jack Daly played his first full game last night against the Barbarians since his injury in the end of the 2022 season. So maybe going forward, maybe he's going to be someone that puts his hand up. And then, it looks like Ethan Coughlin and Joey Carberry for the midfield. Coughlin looked sharp again. Seems to be holding off Neil Cronin, which is cool to see. Cronin is signed on until January, I believe. And Tony Butler from Clare has a real athleticism. He's someone to look out for early games because he just has that little turn of pace from 10. If he comes off the bench late in games, be interesting. Frisch and Roy Scanlon probably be the midfield, with Alex Nagyvel and Sean O'Brien unavailable. Munster signed two centres. Two centres are injured. Some things never change, Jeff. And if I was a betting man, I'd say it'll be Daly fullback, Conway on the right wing, and Calvin Nash on the left wing. And going forward, it's a great position to be in. To be honest, can't drop Mike Haley. Daly and Nash were two of the best players in the URC last year. Andrew Conway is Mr. Reliable, and there is just the man and the Z man as well to accompany. Whether we see Keith Earls in a Munster shirt ever again is another question. He still hasn't signed on, but yeah, really, really impressed. And another player, like we'd like to talk about young players. Ruan Quinn, Brian Gleeson, Shea McCarthy on the wing, Fionn Gibbons at centre, Ethan Coughlin, who I mentioned. Mark Donnelly is probably going to get a few games, or maybe Kieran Ryan at prop. Just watch out for those guys because there's room for rotation. I think there's something like 7 weeks in a row that the provinces are going to have games, if not more, maybe 12 weeks in a row. So definitely one to watch out for there. How are Munster going to do? Hopefully double winners, but that doesn't happen too often. So might hold my tongue on that one.
Well, now we go north, where Peter Lockhart from the Red Hat podcast looks at Ulster.
So, look, in terms of Ulster in this pre-season, there's not a huge amount to take encouragement from. I think, like most seasons, even when Ulster are bad, they're not that bad. You tend to beat most teams in the URC, but at the business end of the season, we tend to struggle. Now, in terms of the actual games we've had so far, we've lost 3 from 3 in pre-season. A lot of people talk about pre-season maybe doesn't matter that much in terms of results. I disagree. I think every time you pull on an Ulster jersey, you're playing with pride. You want to see performances. It doesn't. I sort of agree. Like, you don't need the perfect result, especially when you're playing the likes of Leinster in pre-season, who have about 4 squads of elite sort of conveyor belt future Ireland stars. Look, there's no shame in that, but we want to see performances. And I was watching the Benetton game last night, so we went away to Benetton and we lost 24-22. And it's the manner of the defeat. There was no fluidity. We looked a bit rudderless. A few young guys got blooded. I want to stay positive. We saw the likes of Cameron Doak, who's Nathan Doak's brother. He's a prop, if you can believe that. And he's promising. Ruben Crothers, who massively promising Ireland under-20s player, has been out through injury, but I'm excited to see him return. He's primarily playing at 7 for Ulster now. The likes of Dave McCann, Harry Sheridan, Cormac Isachukwu as well. These are all guys we don't produce, and historically, probably in the past 10, 15 years, we haven't produced that many homegrown forwards. So it's good to see guys coming through. Like, in terms of the guys we've lost, though, like, it's rare that I go into a season with pessimism. I've been an Ulster fan, been at every home game for about 25 years. In terms of going in, I'm always optimistic. You look at the squad and you go, look, that's a good. We're shaping up well here, but we've lost the likes of some experienced players. Likes of Gilroy's gone, Dwayne Vermeulen's massive. Even Sam Carter started to play well by the end of his time at Ulster. Rory Sutherland, a solid presence. Jeff Tamaga Allen has gone as well. Absolutely gutted about that. It's sort of flowing under the radar, in the bigger picture. But Jeff Tamaga Allen he's very effective for us, particularly Marty Moore out for most of the season last year. And Ian Madigan has left us very light. He's announced his retirement there. Madigan didn't get played by Ulster, so someone was always confused.
That's happened a lot with him over the years, unfortunately. That's
pretty sure he won like his last 3 games for Ulster or something mad like that. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, play him and I don't blame him. He's probably just gone, look, I'm not going to play that much. He has plenty of other things lined up, so he's gone off into the sunset. And now we have it's a bit of a weird one, because I'm still trying to understand Ulster's logic and who they bring in. The recruitment has been bizarre, and look, in terms of, I'm talking about last season primarily. So Jake Flannery brought in from Munster, and we decide not to play him. We maybe give him a couple of pre-season games and the odd cameo here and there, and then seem to clamber for his signature at the end of the season. Either he's good enough or he's not. Now, I happen to think he is, and he's a very promising player. Some actually very nice touches from him last night. In terms of, those are the players we've lost, players we've brought in. We're talking Kitsoff, fantastic signing. Can't argue with that. He's massive. He will be massive for us. That's the sort of player we need. Maybe 3 of that caliber of player to give us a really good chance of competing in the top levels in Europe. The other guy, Dave Ewers, as well, by all accounts, again, like, I've seen bits and pieces of him over the years. Really solid, really straight and hard ball carrier, which is fantastic and exactly what we need. Vermeulen didn't really fill that void that Coetzee left in terms of ball carrying. I happen that he divides opinion, but I think Vermeulen was really good for Ulster. He gave us something a bit different. He's a proven winner, and we will miss him, and we've seen that in the World Cup so far. You know, he's still playing for involved with South Africa, you know. So in terms of, you mentioned, and I'll not go on here too much, but in terms of a starting team, we're looking at Kitsoff, Herring and O'Toole. Moore will come back into the team, all being well at some stage. We've got Al O'Connor, who's massively important for Ulster, flies under the radar a wee bit, alongside Ian Henderson when he's around. We didn't see a huge amount of Henderson at Ulster last season. Back row looks likely to be Ewers with Timoney, some combination of Ewers or Timoney at 6 and 8, and Marcus Ray and Sean Reffel at 7. Reffel, again, didn't really see anything of him, suffered an injury shortly after he arrived at Ulster. Then you've got Cooney and Billy Burns at halfbacks, McCloskey and Hume, and then the back 3 of Balakoon, Stockdale, and probably Lowry. Will Addison is back in the fold. He didn't feature last night, but Will Addison is back fit. Now, fingers crossed for him, because he's a quality player, and to use a sporting cliche, he could be like a new signing for us, and he really could be. He's a class act. We've all seen him, you know, playing for Ulster in Ireland. When fit, he's fantastic. But like, and just to cap this off, I think like Dan McFarlane's a really good coach. No one disputes that. But is he a good head coach? I'm not sure he is. I'm not sure he is. No one who plays under McFarlane would dispute the fact that he's a great technical coach. But in terms of keeping guys on side, keeping the dressing room on side, in terms of players, he's improved. It's not that many. I think that's the mark of a good coach. You know, look at our Ireland representation. What do we have? 4 guys. Herring, Henderson, McCloskey, O'Toole. There's all these guys. I would say a couple of seasons ago, you would have said, look, they'll be at the World Cup. The likes of Mike Lowry, maybe James Hume, Balakoon, Stockdale. None of these guys have kicked on in the way that we might expect. The issue, sorry, I'm nearly done here, but we revert to our line-out maul far too often. And it's because we're not creative enough. We're not inventive enough in our back line. We have an unbelievably talented group of backs there, but like whenever we're not getting, and that's the thing. That's my frustration with Ulster. We have a great team. Like I've rhymed off potential starting 15, all fantastic players. But if you're not getting, if they're not fulfilling their potential, there's an issue. And like it's either the players or the coaches, and you can't sack all the players. So you have to look at the coach and go, like, what's going on here?
And finally, when it comes to Leinster, I thought I'd delegate the pre-season summary. So for now, I'm going to magically transform myself into Jay Long. He's talking to us from last Thursday. Here's what he had to say about the boys in blue.
I suppose first off, I'd like to just call out congratulations to the women's 15s women's players who've made it into the Irish squad. That was nice news this week. But yeah, in terms of how our squad is shaping up, obviously we're we have 2 pre-seasons in the books now, and while the kind of by and large the motive of the games isn't really to win them. It is nice that we have come out the other side of them. I haven't obviously the coverage hasn't been full because obviously the prime focus of last week was kind of to get some revenue into Nav and RC and stuff like that. So I've just seen the highlights, but by all intents and purposes, listen to yourselves and look at the match report. Aside for some dodgy research stuff that I think Tom was talking to, we looked pretty impressive. It was nice to see some of those under-20s lads coming in, Gus McCarthy, Paddy McCarthy, and stuff like that. So it's pretty exciting. But again, it's tough to decide how many of those guys would be, say, in a hypothetical starting 15 for say Glasgow in a couple of weeks' time. I think we'll see an awful lot more of what Leo has in mind for that game against Cast. They'll be in a different spot. I think they're maybe third or fourth round of top 14 at this stage, so they'll be much further along in terms of shaking off the ring rust. So I think that'll be when we first see what Leo's kind of rough idea what a starting 15 will be and what the bench is going to look like, and hopefully that bench is bolstered by some of those lads we've seen over the pre-seasons. But I'll just talk to what I would imagine that this is going to look like in terms of a strong start 15 for Glasgow. So kind of the front row, I think for myself, I would probably go the likes of Ed Bourne. He seems to be the kind of our kind of main kind of operator there. But just at the time of recording, it was quite nice to see Cian Healy put out a pretty promising tweet about his fitness. So we'll watch his progress with great interest, obviously. And we also have like Milne and Temi Lasisi and stuff like that who's coming up as well, who are look quite promising. At hooker, I would say probably the main man in there at the moment would be McKee, with kind of Barron and Gus McCarthy obviously being nice backups there. And then on the tight head side, maybe Tom Clarkson would be our kind of most experienced probably front row, and unfortunately we probably will have Michael Alatoa back sooner rather than later. So Big Mike would be a nice number to slot in there. So that'd be the kind of front row I'd be thinking about. Obviously, it'd be nice to see like Tom Connolly and Maguire and stuff like that get some tenure in there as well. But against like quality operators like Glasgow, I don't think we could afford to say go with the same sort of front row like Jack Boyle and stuff like that and Rory Maguire straight off. It'd be nice to see those guys brought in, with some seasoned campaigners beside them to bring them up to speed. Second row, then I think we've plenty of good heads there. We have kind of Maloney, Deeney, Jenkins, and Mangan and O'Tierney. I can never pronounce O'Tiernagin's name. There's too many letters there. But yeah, it's really, really good. Obviously, Jason Jenkins, we're still kind of hoping to see more of him this season. And the back row, I guess, haven't seen much in terms of comms about Reese's fitness. He has been he was doing some presser stuff for the Castoro kits and stuff like that, and I saw he was doing an interview like last week, but he obviously hasn't featured in the pre-seasons. But I would strongly suspect he's going to be having a kind of strong leadership role in the first couple of weeks until our World Cup guys get back. And then otherwise you have Max Deegan, Scott Penny, Will Connors, Culhane. So there's plenty there, and really interesting to see Culhane get the armband last week. Very, very kind of a bit of a shock, obviously a nice shock, but obviously it's a real vote of confidence from Leo and stuff like that about what type of player they imagine he is. And also, if you want to throw that in, like we know how well McCarthy did as captain for the under-20s as well. So there's like some really nice, strong leadership coming in off a bench for us this season, which is really, really nice to see. Moving into say 9, Lukey, you can't go better than Lukey. So, and then obviously have Foley, who I think is a really, really classy operator as well. 10, we've an abundance. Like Harry Bourne, Raleigh, Hector, Van Prendergast. There's a full list there. I suppose one of the issues there would be keeping all those lads happy, which is something I've been worried about for a while. Obviously with kind of Ross being on his travels, but obviously Johnny now moving on, there is a little more space there for that to filter up. But hopefully we can keep those lads well fed. Be really, really interesting to see the kind of mixture between where Frawley's playing this season. There's been so much talk about, obviously he seems to be a 10 in Andy Farrell's eyes, but he seems to feature more in the centres for us. So it'll be interesting. I think he started at 10 in the first pre-season game 2 weeks ago. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how he's used this season. I think he's obviously a classy operator, but he hasn't seemed to got the game time that we hoped he would get over the last couple of years. So we're hoping to see more of him. And then into the centres, then again, you could probably most of the same guys again, like Kieran Frawley, Harry Bourne as well. Both of them could do a job at 12. And then Charlie Natai and then Ben Brownlee as well. So again, some really, really nice operators there. Like Charlie, he was so good last year. So impressive how quickly he got bedded in at the start of last season. So I'm really, really happy we'll see more of Charlie this season. 13, Jamie Osborne back up and trucking. Really, really happy to see that. And Turner, who scored some really nice scores there for the second pre-season game. Should be two really, really classy operators. Then on the wings, we'd have Rob Russell, Tommy O'Brien, really, really nice. Larmer at a push, I guess, because I think mainly Larmer we're going to see him at 15 until Jimmy and Hugo get back. But I suppose the really, really impressed with Russell last season, but hoping to see a bit of Azal King, and obviously Jamie's brother Andrew would be nice to see on the wing as well. They'll be coming up. And again, as I said, fullback it would be Larmer, but the kind of main first names there I go would be my say to start at 15. A nice mix of experience to keep cool heads, but also start cycling those new lads through, getting them some game time and some quality opposition. So that's the kind of where I'd be going for.
Right, that's great, lads. Well, definitely a lot to look forward to, although with the URC kicking off the same weekend as the World Cup semi-finals, obviously as provincial fans, we're all hoping to be still a little bit distracted by Test rugby at the time, but sure, we'll see what happens. Many thanks to you all for joining us. Please be sure to like, share and subscribe.